Hello and welcome to Pelicar. This is Nuts and Bolts, episode 14, part 2 of a three-parter talking about the economies of fantasy worlds, alternatively titled Econoria Part 2, or Everything That Didn't Fit Into Part 1. This is the show where we talk about fantasy world building as it pertains to RPGs, storytelling, and the realm of Pelicar in particular. I've been developing this world for about 35 years. During most of that time, I've been involved in gaming of one sort or another. I've run some great campaigns. I've done some writing and published a few things. I have a degree in history from Oklahoma State University. I've been self-employed, and I've worked for the man. Does this wealth of life experience make me an expert? In some cases, I'm confident that I can say so. In others, not so much. Today, however, we are talking about fantasy economics, and on this one, you can trust me. The big picture. Macroeconomics. How to pick a fight over politics. Realistically, there are just two types of economies, planned and free market. In a planned economy, the government decides everything. They own the car plant and tell the managers what vehicles to build and how many. They own the factories. They own the farms. They own the pet stores. In a free market economy, the government is hands off. Business owners and boards of directors call the shots. They decide what to produce and how much and at what prices they will sell. Both have advantages and disadvantages. Free markets are profit-driven. They adapt to new technologies and market pressures quickly. But if it means that dumping your waste into the river is good for the bottom line, then do it. If you can get by with restricting pee breaks to your employees, go ahead. On the other hand, planned economies offer no incentives, and they are slow to respond. Neither are connected to government types by rule, but there are some obvious tendencies. Planned economies are usually linked with forms of communism. Free market goes hand in hand with oligarchs. Did I mention that there are really an infinite number of economies? Planned and free market ecos are really just opposite points on the same line. All of those economies are mixed, falling somewhere in the middle. All those brutal Facebook arguments where people are accusing each other of being fascist or communist, they aren't arguing about whether they're ones or tens on the eco scale. They're arguing over a pretty narrow range right down the middle. The big trope. The 99%ers. The big no-brainer. What do all fictional economies have in common? They are functionally Western capitalism. Was that your answer? How about they are all intentionally obscure? I think both would be true. You want a room for the night? You pay the innkeeper. You want a sword? You pay the iron worker. You want to see a man about a horse? All you need is coins. It doesn't matter if there's a king or some other noble. The city could be run by some sort of clergy, a council, or a warlord. Creators like to keep things simple. Behind the scenes, there might be all kinds of gobbledygook. But up front, the part that you see is straightforward money economy. And when the heroes deal with the big guy, king, lord, boss, whatever, the deal is almost always money, money, money. At least in Skyrim, you get to be a Thane for your trouble, so nobody cares much when you finally can't take Nazim's bullshit anymore. You have committed crimes against Skyrim. I'm a Thane, buddy. Sorry, Thane. Didn't recognize you. Not to worry. Just help me drag this body to the drain with the rest of them. Well, that was random. Seemed more relevant when I originally did the script. Where were we? The money thing doesn't seem so terribly unrealistic. Most of the time, in most parts of the world, you had a merchant class. They played a huge part in transforming medieval Europe from a decentralized mass of minor nobles into the High Middle Ages, Enlightenment, and beyond. They were there for the Middle East. the Far East, and for American expansionism. It could be Conan fighting for jewels and buying drugs and alcohol in the local inn. Or maybe you prefer dinner and drink at the Prancing Pony or the Hog's Head. This is about as deep as most fantasy ecos run, and that's fair, but what if you want more? Before we go there, let's appease the comment section. Earlier I said, all fictional economies do a few things the same. Is it ever fair to say all? Probably not. For me, absolutism is a pet peeve that I always indulge in. However, how many exceptions can you think of? There's a great scene in the Book of Eli where he barters for a price to have his Walkman recharged. In Waterworld, for all of its faults, they have one or two good scenes where bartering builds the plot and gets them where they want to go. The strategy's pretty solid for a movie or a campaign. I'd say treat adventuring groups like you treat wealthy merchants or landed mobility, whether they own land or not. It becomes durable and consistent within its own setting. Don't get bogged down, but play through the details from time to time. Make a barter skill mean something. It's just one more way to build character that's not all about DPS and armor ratings. Subsection 21F. Questions to answer. Philosophical point. As an arbiter of decisions, you should know the behind-the-scenes workings of your world. This applies to writers, dungeon masters, map makers, and world buildings of any description I may have missed. Once you know these wonderful things, you will want to reveal them to your audience. Often, the pithy bastards won't give a shit, so be wary. Use this powerful knowledge sparsely for the general audience, and take advantage of today's multi-platform creative tarmac to fly in your hardcore fans and nerd them the out. The questions. Machine gun style. The tax structure. The more central to the story of a particular culture, the more you should know. Is there a wealth tax? An income tax? Is there a property tax? Hey, are there fees to do stuff? Do adventuring teams have to buy a license? Does a bar owner? Maybe you have to buy a renewable tag for your horse or your sword. Who owns the local resources? Are the gold mines private ventures? Or does it all belong to the state? Even in many modern, somewhat progressive cultures, natural resources are owned by the people via the state and licensed to those who would exploit them. What about the means of production? Who owns the tanneries, slaughterhouses, the bakeries, the weavers? Maybe there are mom-and-pop tailors, but all that material comes from the Sultan's textile plants. Can you own a horse? Is it legal to own unminted gold? Now you see here, what I want to know is who owns the land. Does the king own it all? The local nobility? Or just whoever can afford to keep it? Keep in mind, you can have a dual system where some noble technically owns it, but the farmer works it, and may even have legal and ancestral rights to maintain his status as its overseer. What about the city gates, the tunnels, the bridges, other river crossings? Are they state-owned? Are there tolls? Can I build a bridge and charge a toll? The local headman has to make money somehow. Maybe you just have to pay a pence to enter his big walled city. Are the big open markets or Main Street storefronts? Big markets seem pretty cool. Can anyone set up shop? What can be bought here? Maybe there's a rivalry between storefronts and market vendors. I say there, what are people really spending? Is it silver? Are the coins uniform? Is it legal to spend foreign coins in the kingdom? Do people do it anyway? Is there paper money? What backs it? What about trading in gems? I have to admit, I've always loved the idea of rich adventurers using gems like big denomination money. Rubies are 100 bits, sapphires 1,000. What about other cool stuff? dragon's teeth, or some other oddity with a stable value. Excuse me, good man, but what happens when it's not stable? Are there economic disruptions? Inflation? Shortages? Are there guilds? Dock workers? Are there stonemasons? Are there unions? How much power do individuals have when they all come together? And what about big businesses in any given locale? Is Bootsville really known as the shoe-wear capital of the world? Where are the wagons made? Who sells the best steel? Or is it bronze? Who, I say, made your clothes? Are they wool, flax, cotton, silk? Are they dyed? Of course they are. What colors are common in the area? Hey, by the way, what do the local farms grow? Now, let's get down to it. What's really being produced out there? It's not going to be phones. It's not going to be automobiles. Most fantasy worlds are probably still involved in agriculture. Next is basic resources, wood, minerals, and fabrics. Next down the line, finished goods, furniture, farming implements, other tools, construction services, pottery, lots of religious stuff. Then come personal services, the sex workers, the professionals, mat makers, mages, priests, sages, tacticians. If you get even more developed, you're getting into jewelers and the makers of better versions of everything listed above. Generalists move to specialist as economy becomes more developed. Creation of a true professional class. Personal observation. In an adventuring economy, you are generating wealth at the same root level as a coal miner or a logger. Harvesting the wealth of a dungeon is pretty much the same as trapping beaver for their pelts. I've even managed worlds, including Dresden's, where there is an understanding that many threats a team of warriors might face were created by the cosmos to keep the system working. One god may have said, "Let there be light," but another said, "Let there be a cave system full of treasure chests and fill it up with buggy-eyed beasts to protect them." Well, okay, I did it again. I got a little distracted there. Okay, one last question for you world builders. Is there haggling? For Samtha's sake, don't haggle every transaction, but it could be fun from time to time. You go in to buy new goods for the trail, and the owner says, "Leather supplies are down due to bandits on the road to Leathertown. Everything is 40% higher." Ah, come on, buddy. I've spent a lot of money in here. How about 10% for me? You want me to starve? 30. 25. And maybe me and my buddies will travel that road next time we leave town. Economic encounters build character. Make skills like bartering and appraisal mean something in your game. If a character only has to worry about doing some damage and how hard they are to hit, then that's all they're going to spend their skill points on. Appendix A. Corruption. Rules are the fuel a thieves' guild runs on. Once you figured out how it's all supposed to work, now you get to break it. Is there a gate fee? Somebody is going to find a way to smuggle people in. If there are taxes and tariffs on certain goods, there will be a black market. The harsher the rules, the more certain a segment of society is going to be driven to break those rules. American Prohibition gave rise to the mobsters of the Roaring Twenties. If the recreational drug trade wasn't illegal, there would be no cartels. What does your paladin do when he catches thieves that are only stealing to feed their babies? Economic issues are character building opportunities. As you grow as a creator, and as you have time to invest in a complex project, you begin to layer your civilization. Geography, politics, economy, religions, they all exist on levels from macro to micro and web themselves together as they go. It's the stuff that urban campaigns are built on. It's also the campaign where everyone doesn't necessarily have to die. Victory might involve killing a few thugs, but once you find the evidence for corruption, turning the guy in for some jail time is good enough. Or maybe you just found a way to humiliate a political opponent. Perhaps outsmarting a rival guild is the victory you were looking for. In the real world, there are repercussions to killing, even if you just kill the bad guys. All right, so that's going to wrap up our primary discussion here. But I'd like to hit one more topic just a little bit before we actually do the sign off and leave. Because fantasy economics, I mean, it is fantasy, and this does leave us some things available that aren't available in the real world. You can have things like a super evil slave economy where the evil villain is a lich or some super powerful being. You can have very effective caste systems where some people are just flat out stronger than others. It may be under a theocracy or a mageocracy, but he who controls the magic controls the world. You can have an oligarchy of heroes where your adventuring team or an old adventuring team has split up. They're all buddies. They might still get together from time to time, but they each rule their little city-state in a region. And a lot of these have been done, so I'm not necessarily breaking into new territory here, but you can have dragon protectorates, an economy of appeasement where the people are working to give the dragons what they want, whether it be treasure or maidens. There's superhero socialism, where you can have a very advanced socialistic world. If you're brave enough to take advantage, you can get out there with some startup funds and you can travel to dangerous places and gather treasure. You don't have to work a 9-to-5 job. You can go fight a monster. Now, you have debts to pay off. You have to pay for your transport, for your equipment, for your training, but that's just one more interesting thing that you can throw into the world. I think the whole point of these 3 episodes is that you can make it easy for yourself, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you can also really muddle it up and do some creative stuff, bringing in completely fantasy aspects and mixing them in to a more complicated real-world economy. So that's going to do it for now. Our last episode is going to be very specific to Dresden's world. In the meantime, I hope that you have enjoyed the episode. Leave a like. Look for Dresden's Tale on Kindle. I have other stories there as well. But most of all, I hope you all have an absolutely wonderful day.